All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks for stopping by and checking out the story. This is part one uh, of, I'm not sure how many parts there's going to be, but I'm redoing part one. There's already part two and part three up on this channel. But the sound quality on the first video was terrible, so I'm redoing it. But this is a story about a murder that happened in 1991, and a man named Carl Wages was convicted of that murder. It was his girlfriend's mom, aggravated murder with violent specification. And I'm trying to find out some more information about him, about the story, and I can't find anything other than this one court document that we're about to read. And then in part two, we kind of go over look into the people who testified in this court case. And then in part three, I have a conversation with Carl himself and try to get his side of the story. So after you listen to this, go check out those other two. And if you have any ideas on how I can find more information, I can get any kind of public documents, court records, court transcripts from the original case, that would be great, because just some things in the story don't add up from what he's saying to what the court's saying. So you can see both sides here in this video. One is the court side. Video three, part three is his side, sort of. But we're going to get right into it. So this is the summary of the case, of the appeals case, that the decision was in July 12th, 1993. And that appeal was denied, obviously, and he's been in prison for the last 33 years, I believe. And let's get right into it. The relevant facts are as follows. The victim, Catherine De La Cruz, was discovered by her daughter Mary and the appellant beaten to death in her home. The Cuyahoga County coroner testified that the cause of death was multiple blows to the head, causing a fractured skull and severe brain injury. The manner of death was ruled a homicide. So basically, this lady was discovered by her daughter Mary and Carl, her boyfriend, and in one morning. I think it says the date later. By way of background, Mary and the appellant were romantically involved against the victim's strong protestation of their relationship. Mary, afflicted with cerebral palsy, lived with the victim. Their relationship became somewhat stormy after Mary met the appellant while working at a muscular dystrophy telethon. Apparently, Mary fell madly in love with the appellant, and the two soon began living together in an efficiency suite behind but attached to the victim's home. So basically they met and fell in love, and Carl didn't like Mary's mother, and Mary's mother didn't like Carl. But yet she let them move into an efficiency suite that's attached to the back of, her home, the mom's home. Thereafter, the appellant lost his job and the two were evicted. Unable to maintain steady employment, the appellant drifted about, taking Mary with him. For a short while, Mary and the appellant lived with the victim, but the victim soon grew intolerant. The victim was afraid of the appellant and also afraid for her daughter. So Mary's mom was saying that she was afraid of Carl and afraid for Mary. The victim's fears prompted her to get a second deadbolt lock on her front door. She was the only one in possession of both keys to that particular lock. Her household rule was that at 10 p.m., the second deadbolt would be activated and Mary and the appellant would not be able to gain entry. The victim went to bed at 10 p.m. every night. It is apparent from the record that Carl was being supported by Mary. Mary, a disabled person, was receiving supplemental Social Security and also had various and sundry part-time jobs. The two were eventually kicked out of Mary's mom's house and lived at the Holiday Inn on Lakeside Avenue for a while, and also stayed with Mary's friends, Shelby Pace and Michael Jeffries. Pace and Jeffries, after a few weeks, asked Mary and Carl to leave because of the explosive fights between those two. Mary had been charging their shelter and food on her credit cards. She had also been using her credit cards to rent a 1991 black Chrysler for the appellant to drive. The day before the victim was discovered beaten to death, Mary and the appellant went to Raymond Edwards' apartment. Edwards, a quadriplegic, was interviewing for a live-in attendant, as his current attendant, Daryl Franklin, was seeking a job elsewhere. Mary and Carl had been to Edwards' apartment before, but Carl was not offered the job. Apparently, Edwards was nervous around the appellant. Franklin testified that on the evening before the victim was discovered, the appellant was using extreme profanity against Mary's mother and stated he couldn't stand her and he hated the woman's guts because she was interfering in their love life. While at Edwards' apartment, Carl offered to go to Jeffrey's apartment to pick up a video for Edwards to watch. Franklin and Mary wanted to go with the appellant, but he insisted on going by himself. He phoned Jeffries, who stayed in an apartment in downtown Cleveland, and said he would be right over. Jeffries testified that this call took place at approximately 7 p.m. Carl was coming from Edwards' apartment on Lakeshore Boulevard in the city of Euclid, not very far from Jeffries' apartment. The round trip should have taken the appellant about a half an hour. The appellant still had not arrived by 8 p.m. when Jeffries' live-in girlfriend, Pace, was on the telephone with Mary's mom. Pace was a longtime friend of Mary, so Mary's mom sought some advice from Pace. Pace testified that the victim told her she was concerned for Mary and was fearful of Carl. Jeffrey had picked up the second phone in their apartment and had also witnessed the contents of this phone call and corroborated Pace's testimony. Basically, back in 91, when we still had landlines, he picked up the extension, and so she was basically talking to both of them. So they both testified to the same thing, that Mary's mom was afraid of Carl. This conversation was cut short at approximately 8:05 to 8:10 when Mary's mom told Pace and Jeffries that she had to get off the phone because Carl was pulling up into the driveway. The victim hastily hung up the phone. Shortly thereafter, Mary, while still at Edwards' apartment, called Pace looking for Carl. Pace told Mary that Carl had not come to get the movie yet. At approximately 9:20, the appellant finally arrived at Jeffries' apartment for the movie. Both Pace and Jeffries testified that he was wearing a blue sweatshirt and shorts with orange stripes on the side. The appellant said he had been detained as a result of a fire on I-90. Franklin testified that the appellant finally arrived at Edwards' apartment, videotape in hand, some 3.5 hours to 4 hours after he departed for a trip that should have only taken a half an hour. Franklin testified that the appellant had changed clothes, was very happy, and appeared to be squeaky clean as if he had just taken a shower. Carl, prior to leaving for the videotape, had been wearing a Randy Travis t-shirt, Adidas black and red jogging pants, and tennis shoes. Franklin testified that Carl, when he returned, was wearing the blue sweatshirt and shorts and had also changed his tennis shoes. The coroner ruled the time of death consistent between 8 and 10 p.m., the night before the appellant and Mary discovered her badly beaten body. Sergeant Carl Fillett of the Cleveland Police Department was called to the victim's home at approximately 8 a.m. The appellant, Carl, had phoned 911 upon discovering the bodies of the victim's body while attempting to gain access. Sergeant Fillett stated that the victim's body was in full rigor mortis and the living room was splattered with dry blood. There was no signs of forced entry or ransacking, and the victim's bed was not slept in. While at the scene, Sergeant Fillett asked neighbors questions about the victim, and the information he was gathering made him immediately suspicious of the appellant. Detective Richard Wilson of the Cleveland Police Department Scientific Investigation Unit arrived on the scene at 8:50 a.m. Detective Wilson testified that the appellant had become extremely hostile and aggressive, so he proceeded to handcuff him, Carl, for his own protection. During this time, Mary had relayed to the police the appellant's whereabouts the night before. Also, neighbors were very open with police regarding the stormy relationship between the appellant and the victim, and the victim's intense fear of Carl. Carl, while at the scene, became the primary suspect. Carl and Mary were then arrested. Mary was eventually released, but Carl was not. The investigating officer noticed a 1991 black Chrysler in the driveway. The officers confiscated the vehicle for processing. Thereafter, an inventory search was conducted. Among the most revealing items found were a pair of red and black jogging pants with an extra pair of tennis shoes that appeared to have been laundered. It was decided to use luminol on these items, and the appellants rented from the. It was decided to use luminol on the items seized from the appellant's rented vehicle. Luminol was sprayed on the jogging pants and the very pants that the appellant was wearing when he picked up the videotape. When he went to pick up the videotape the night of the victim's brutal murder. The pants tested positive for traces of human blood. The blood type on the jogging pants matched that of the victim's type. So basically, yeah, they said that they found the jogging pants that he had left the house in that night before, and he claims that he was wearing those jogging pants the following morning when he called the police and claimed, that he found the body. So that's where the story differs, and that's where I'd like to actually get some information on, to figure that out, because he says he wore those sweatpants that's what he was arrested into the jail. That's what he wore. And so when he got given his prison clothes, those should have been bagged up for evidence or whatever. But yet, the police testified that they were found in the car. And so that's an interesting part. But basically, that's the end of it. These are just the appeals, the points of appeal that they were trying to make, and they all got denied. But yeah. So if you know anything about how to dig into court records, public records, you can find anything on this, please send it to me. My email is ColdCase614@gmail.com. Send me any information you can find, or any links or anything that I can, I'll do the research and dig into it and try. I just can't find hardly anything about this case. So this is where I need your guys' help. So listen to part 2. I think part 2 is pretty quick. And then part 3 is a little bit longer, but it's the actual recorded phone call that I had with Carl about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago from the recording of this video. But it kind of gives his side of the story out there a little bit. And that's where I need your guys' help. So thanks for listening. Share this, on any of your social media platforms that you can get the word out. Like I'm not a YouTuber. I'm not looking for subs and all that kind of stuff. I just, want as many people to see this as possible to help me get some more information that I'm looking for, because I got to find out more about this guy. So leave me your information. Anything you can find is much appreciated. And thanks for listening.